Hello, Heron.
Hello, Tom.
I have a few notes in front of me. Do you have anything you want to start off with?
Yeah, I've got lots of notes, actually. Surprising. Yeah, well, this thing is beginning to get a hold of me now. The first great revelation I had this week is how much socks have improved over the decades. That they actually stay up now. And I don't wear shoes and socks, but about 2 days a week,
Certainly.
and only for when I'm at work. So I don't spend a lot of time in, wearing shoes and socks. But I just bought some, and when I wear socks, I usually wear these tube socks, these white tube socks, and these were amazing. They just and when you take them off, they go right back. There's some new fabric that they've invented since the last time I bought socks. Anyway, it's not earth-shaking, I suppose, but
I've often wonder, the new listener that's been told by all their friends that there's this profound new podcast called Stone Ape. They listen in.
Welcome.
First 2 minutes, tube socks, folks. Tube socks. Deuces.
There you go.
What other highbrow topic do you have?
Oh, you don't have any comment on that? Okay.
Tube socks? Look,
no, on just socks in general.
back in Australia, when I lived in abject poverty and my hands were blue for 9 months of the year, socks were basically what I used to carry everything in. In fact, I carried my pencils in a baby bottle, and then some kid threw it off a second-story window because it said unbreakable on it. That was the end of the baby bottle. And then I started carrying my pencils in a sock, and I had one teacher that refused to teach me unless I took my pencils out of the sock. And I said, okay, I'll take my pencils out of the sock before I come into your class, and when I leave your class, I'll put the pencils back in the sock, because she was so offended with me using a sock.
Them language monkeys.
You know where she is now? She's probably dead, Heron.
Well, there's a good chance of that. Yes.
Very good.
It was probably one of her students murdered her.
Yes. Well, actually, she was a heavy smoker. She used to go out. She'd put on videos and stuff, go out and have a few cigarettes and then come back. So, yes. Her aversion to salt ran deep.
Oh, man. Cigarettes, I haven't thought about that in a long time. Because I was a smoker. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Boy, it's so good. Yeah, if I had I'd probably be dead if I'd kept smoking. I think that's amazing.
A possibility.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, the next thing I wanted to clarify something, because something we talked about last time, and I just threw a remark out, and I don't even remember exactly what it says, because, like I said, I never listened to this stuff.
Yeah.
But I made some remark about my reactions to homosexuals, but that I can override it.
It was interesting, actually, because my perspective is, and I've heard from a number of folks that the last recording was a classic episode.
Yeah.
And my perspective on it was, because I cut about half an hour of just general rambling, where we didn't have a topic and we were just, bouncing off ideas. Yeah. But I left that in, because I thought that was actually the hinge point of the episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it struck me that I really was being kind of flippant at the time, and I thought about it afterwards. I thought, that really is sort of a hot topic for a lot of people, and I probably ought to clarify my position somewhat on this, because it's a little more nuanced than that.
You're not deeply disgusted. It's more kind of guttural in the throat.
No, it's just that there's an aspect of that there. That's all. It's subtle, profound, whatever. It's just part of my programming. Growing up in this culture, and it just arises the same way that my response to the smell of a snake or a steak might arise, just sort of spontaneously.
They do have a strange smell, don't they, snakes?
I don't know. I've never spent much time with snakes.
You need to sniff a snake, Heron.
All right, a snake sniffer.
Yes. What caught me through that whole discussion is actually many listeners protested too much associated with their various fetishes. I think, basically, in order to listen to Stone Ape, you must have some serious perversions going on, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, who doesn't? We're all so busy hiding our peculiarities even from ourselves.
Yes.
We certainly aren't going to be talking about it.
Yes, we all harbor deep, dark secrets involving midgets and mayonnaise, yes.
Well, I'm not sure about I think the content may vary. That's right. Wouldn't it be strange to find out that everybody had a midget and mayonnaise fetish?
Yes.
Now there you go. What are the odds against that?
Yes.
Anyway, I realized it got me thinking about a whole bunch of stuff. My first real experience with homosexuality was a good friend of the lady I was living with. In fact, the lady who worked at the fish place that got me the free scallops all the time.
This is a new lady in your repertoire, Heron.
Oh, I've never talked.
Did she have the cats, or was that another? That was
same lady. Yeah,
oh, it's the same one, the cat lady.
Yeah, the cat lady. Yeah, we had like 6. Zucchini, the guy who used to jump and hit his head on the bottom of the table. Yeah. God, I haven't thought about that in a while. Anyway, he was a friend of hers, and he used to come over all the time. And I didn't even know he was gay. You know, he didn't act gay. He just was a guy. You know, I mean, he had no affectations that I was aware of anyway. You know, and I guess we had a party once, and he brought his lover or boyfriend or whatever it was with him. You know, and it was a big surprise to me, but I already had established a relationship with him. Yes. You know, I mean, I'd known him for probably a year, you know, on and off. I'd see him every couple of weeks or something, you know. What I realized that I'm offended by is affectations that are put on by any kind of, it's not just homosexuals, politicians, athletes,
Australians,
gamblers, Marines, cops. Stockbrokers, you know, have images in their head of what they think they're supposed to look like or act like, and then they proceed to imitate the image in their head. And to me, that is fundamentally ill. You know, it's one thing to act out an image consciously as an actor, to realize that in order to accomplish something in particular, for this case, I'm going to take on a persona and do it. And because it works, you know, but I don't think that's what's going on with most people who are imitating their personas.
To be fair, I mean, I have pondered this as well, but my perspective is that everything's an act. I mean, it's easy to do it over a podcast.
No, you're right. You're right.
My perspective is, I mean, look, people have speculated that my accent could be an act. My spiritual advisor periodically has done that, and these kind of things.
Well, you have an option to accent it more or cut it back. Probably you're aware enough to know how you sound. So you're partially. It's right, partially.
Yeah. No, it is interesting when you're first introduced to, you know, homosexuality. I mean, my introduction was actually being cornered by a man when I must have been, I don't know how old I was. I might have been about 13. And he proceeded to tell me, and look, to be fair, many homosexuals are actually offended that I would, or that there's nothing, well, pedophilia and homosexuality are two separate issues.
Yeah. They may overlap, but then so can a love of peanut butter, you know.
Certainly, yeah. So maybe that isn't a good example. However, he was incredibly graphic.
It's a good example to you.
And described what he had done to his brother for a number of years, and I kind of stepped sideways and
excuse me, I think it's dinner time.
Yes. Which was actually quite difficult because he had quite literally cornered me, and he was a larger gentleman. But no, I got out of that situation. He had tried to approach me on a few occasions.
And how did you react to that? I mean, you got out of there relatively quickly.
Well, no, he cornered me, and the thing was that I was doing something at the time. I think I was picking something up. So when he approached me, pardon?
He cornered you where?
It was in a local university. It was
in a hallway or something. Or?
No, it was. I think. There was some. I honestly can't remember the exact details.
The broom closet.
It was associated actually probably with me doing some lighting event or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was probably
utility room.
Yeah, wrapping wires or something. And he used the fact that I hadn't fled quickly. To indicate that I was actually interested in him, which meant that he found me on a couple of other occasions. He is actually the origin of the Tim guy, because this is the groomer that picked up this Tim fellow who stalked me through my late teens in Australia. But in terms of friends, you see, the thing is that due to my mannerisms, even in Australia, people are, well, it's not that they're unsure, they just suspect that there might be something there with me, I suspect. I don't know.
You mean homosexual?
So, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, I've been approached on a few occasions by friends and other folk, and I'm just trying to think of that. And I'm really in no way interested. And the thing was...
Well, I think homosexuality is somewhat aligned with intellectuality, too.
Well, yes.
At least it is here.
I mean, you talk about these kind of effeminate mannerisms and these kind of affectations, and I just, I grew up in a single-parent family. My mother raised me, but the funny thing is, I really can't stand the smell of men. And it's absolutely, like, when I dated through my early 20s, I dated a woman who lived some distance from, and she still lived at home. She'd had glandular fever for a period of time. She actually gave me glandular fever through the process, mono, as it's called in the US.
Yes.
And I had to stay in the same bed that her sister's boyfriend slept in. And they never changed the sheets. So I was surrounded by this teenager, because her sister was about 3 years younger than she was. I was surrounded by this teenager smell, which just left a kind of, in my throat. But yeah, it's interesting actually.
I think you're going to cut this out, right?
No, I don't care. I don't know.
So I'm going to suggest that we cut this whole part.
What aspect of this is not? I think all of this is palatable. Do you think this is dangerous?
No, I'm just being funny.
What other topics?
I'm not being that funny, apparently.
Well, I don't. That's funny actually, because when I think I'm not being funny, the audience responds that it's the most hilarious shit they've ever heard. But anyway, moving on from this. Any other topics?
Well, I'm not sure I'm through with this one because it brought up a lot for me. Because I started, like I say, afterwards. Of course, I should have gone back and listened to it. That would have helped, probably.
It's very small, and my perspective is actually from the emails that I've received. No one has mentioned that as a specific turning point from my perspective. And I talked to my spiritual advisor about it. I found it fascinating because I oftentimes realize that people don't understand when I'm tongue in cheek. Associated with, perversions and these kind of things. Yeah. And you thought I was serious.
About what?
About using the term perversion to describe people that stick their tongues in each other's nose and this kind of stuff.
Oh, no, it wasn't you. I was just bringing up the point. That's all. I mean, that's the standard way of talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's not something you just made up.
True. You're right. I was just attributing it to people that like whispering.
Yeah. Well, it's just all very interesting because like I say, my programming is deep. You know, I mean, the shit you learn as a 3-year-old, as a 4-year-old, your emotional responses to certain kinds of situations are deeply embedded. I can assure you, I've been struggling with a lot of these things my whole life.
Yeah.
And, I'm being aware of them as specific tendencies is quite helpful though, even if you can't get rid of them. Like I say, there's a part of me, it's subtle, it may come up or it may not. But again, since I've identified what it really is I don't like affectations.
Interesting.
And affectations of any kind sort of piss me off. Except mine, of course.
Yeah.
So that's what it's not homosexuality per se. Except that's a really good example of people, and like I say, not everybody does that. I'm sure there are plenty of gay people who nobody would have ever suspected are gay, because they're just guys who happen to like fucking guys.
The thing that I always find curious, though, is that you have these strange conservative commentators that are either priests or there's a presidential candidate, a GOP presidential female GOP. Michelle Bachmann, perhaps is her name, and her husband has really strong gay affectations. And
didn't he have something to do with some reprogramming?
Yes, but also they have adopted kids and things like that. I mean, there are biological reasons why that would occur, but this guy's pretty out there in terms of like, if you didn't know who he was, you'd know who he was if you met him at a party, Yeah. And it always strikes me as particularly... You talk about the affectations, but these people must be a clear and present danger for their being to have these affectations. I mean, this is why I always find it curious. Is it really an affectation, or is it something associated with genetics?
It's not either or. It's obviously both.
Yeah.
But the only thing we really have any control over is the not the genetic side.
Yes.
Well, there we have some control over that, I guess, and we're beginning to get some control in that domain. So who knows? Maybe we will. But yeah, but it's true for everybody. We all grow up and take on all these roles, and these kinds of behaviors. And in America, I guess being gay in America is probably very different than being gay in Argentina. Or being gay in the USSR or in Iran.
Certainly, yes.
So...
Yeah, or anywhere controlled by ISIS, yeah.
Yeah, they're just... Well, or just a place that, like in Japan. I mean, every culture is unique, and they're going to have different nuanced responses to all these things, Yeah, so being gay in America, maybe it's just being gay in America that sucks. Maybe gay people in other parts of the world are allowed to just be normal.
I don't think I've ever worked at a job where there hasn't been someone who's openly gay. I think it's pretty standard in terms of the areas that I've worked. Even in one place, it was a kind of
And what does it mean to be openly gay? I guess what I would call openly gay... Well, no, that's different. Yeah, you have to... I'm drawing some hairs here. But some people, you don't have to talk to them.
Yeah.
You don't have to be introduced. You can see from 40 feet away.
Yeah.
Okay. But but again, that may in fact be a conscious affectation in certain situations where people are, taking that on temporarily. It's just that my initial experience was with a guy who was just a guy, and the fact that he liked other guys just sort of never came up.
Yeah.
It was, and I really like him.
Yeah.
Did him. That was many, many years ago.
Yeah, I guess for me, it doesn't even, it's not even on my radar associated with being, I guess my mother had a number of gay friends. In fact, I don't think any of them had AIDS, but they were parts of groups at the time, the 80s, where they knew people at least that had AIDS, I think. They're probably the closest people I knew that knew people that had AIDS. And when I returned to Australia, actually, I got in a pretty drawn-out fight with one of them because he had written a book about saying sorry associated with the conditions of the Aborigines in Australia. And, I had a falling out with him, which was quite spectacular and involved me having to buy the wine and the meal for them because my mother had chastised me sufficiently for even raising this as an issue.
Yeah.
But, I guess I grew up around gay men and just knew... they were close friends of the family, basically.
Yeah.
And had no,
I had no experience at all.
And I guess that's what's particularly curious associated with being solicited by this fellow, and subsequently having, a couple of male friends that just assumed I was gay.
Yeah.
Was that the power dynamic associated with this fellow was clearly really off-putting. And actually very upsetting for me at the time, because I was interested in chicks, and,
Yeah, really. This is not good.
Greasy 43-year-old men. That just wasn't my thing. And it kind of frustrated me, because a lot of my friends were having success with chicks, and I was getting followed around by this loser.
I did have a guy come on. I don't remember when this was in relation to... Well, no, this must have been before. So actually, my very first... encounter was something like yours, only I wasn't cornered or trapped. I was just walking down the street and there was a guy standing there leaning against the wall and made some, I don't even remember what he said, but it was clear what he was going for,
Yeah.
And I just kept walking, and that was the end of it. But it certainly stopped me in my tracks.
My spiritual advisor and her sisters, they were on the school bus. This is in LA, ladies and gentlemen. Periodically would see men masturbating in cars. I don't think I've ever... That struck me as just really strange. I travelled on a lot of buses. I've never had that.
Yeah, I've driven a lot of cars, and I've never jacked off when I was driving either.
But it's
although I did get a blowjob once.
In LA, ladies and gentlemen.
No, actually it wasn't. It was out in Palm Springs.
Oh, very good. Very good. Keep that stuff out of LA. No, it struck me as really strange because my spiritual advisor, like I was saying, said in her childhood that she had these experiences, and her sister, her older sister, a slightly older sister, burst out crying and it really emotional, or at least she reacted.
That was her.
And my spiritual advisor was like, well, it's kind of disgusting, but I'm not going to cry over this.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, again,
I married her, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what I'm talking about, is this the programming we receive on the level.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that shit is deep.
Oh, yeah.
And like I say, maybe the best you can do is identify it and become conscious of it, and then try to counter it when it arises. Because I haven't had much luck in changing that initial response.
I don't know. For the first week, I have now lived feeling that people that lick out nostrils are okay. And I must say, it's been a revelation.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
No, I've taken a small hog. You got a response out of me last recording, Heron, that made me realise I've been a bigot associated with tongue, nose, reaming.
Yeah. And there are other places too.
Yeah. No, as you alluded to last recording. So I hear.
Yeah, you know, and it's not my thing, I can assure you, but but see, that's the whole thing about sex is just monkey business. I don't give a shit what you're doing, even if you're doing it like in missionary position. It's still fucking monkey business. Who cares? That's why I think about homosexuality. I really don't give a shit who you're fucking. What I care about is how you're thinking.
Yes.
Gabriel wrote about his speech problems and asked if, his question is, how is one's language machine affected by a speech defect such as stuttering? And it just struck me that the question that I wanted to comment on the structure of that question, that sort of, for the language machine to be affected by a speech defect would sort of assume that there are two different things, one thing having an effect on the other. And I don't see it that way at all. I see a stutter as a particular mode that a language machine operates in. They're not separate things that affect each other. They're the same thing. And so it's already affected. Probably the issue is, how can you get rid of a stutter? And, they still don't know. I mean, there have been some studies and there are things that are successful with some people, but there is no hard and fast solution to stuttering that I know of. There are just a bunch of things that do work in some cases.
Have you ever had a temporal stammer?
Well, no more than a couple seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, in the sight of some beautiful woman or something, just sort of stunned,
yes.
into, but no, it's never been an issue for me.
Yeah, I've periodically had temporal stammers associated with being in the presence of particular people, not women actually, and not in any way, usually through, I don't know, mate, I've always reduced it down to over-cognicizing the environment. But also, coughing as well is something that I find very similar, actually. Like, in certain circumstances, I just cough.
Ah, yeah, okay, yeah.
And I have very limited control over it, but it's usually...
Yeah, so these are the things I'm talking about before, about these sort of deep-level reactions that we've got that are way below the level of intellectual understanding.
And maybe also below the level of language, fundamentally.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what I mean. This is way deeper than that. You can probably use language more effectively in trying to get at it, but it's not based in that domain at all. At least that's my sense of it.
Certainly.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just wanted to make that point, that they're not two separate things, one affecting the other, that it can exist. You can't have a speech defect aside from a language machine. Obviously. So anyway, and he said, what are Tom and Heron's thoughts on Valentine's Day? I have absolutely none, so that's the end of that. I don't know if you've got some ideas or if you want to talk about that.
Sometimes I've celebrated, sometimes I haven't. My perspective is usually I have an agreement with my spiritual advisor. Slight footnote here, which fits in with Valentine's Day. Gabriel also asked me if my spiritual advisor was the same person as my wife. And we use the term spiritual advisor here primarily because actually my wife didn't like being mentioned in podcasts continuously because she's basically, she's my other in these kind of conversations. So I started using the term spiritual advisor just to disambiguate. there might be a spiritual advisor and there might be my wife, and they might be two different people.
That's right.
Associated with Valentine's Day, though, specifically, usually through agreement we either celebrate it or we don't, and it's just a joke. It's not, it's not something that we deeply...
Do you know the origins of it? I'm sure it's some advertising thing that began in the early part of the century.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
I'm sure.
I don't know what it is, but...
I've never dug too deeply, but yeah, that's my assumption as well.
Valentine's Day. Well, it's nice when you're young and you're in love.
Oh. Other listener feedback, Karen?
Well, yeah, but it's a little bit deeper, and it's the ARG.
Ah, yes.
One.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that later? I can drop that for now, but
let's return to it.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good.
I'll make a note to return to it.
Yeah, okay. Well, last night I went to a meetup.
Oh.
For people who were looking for people who wanted to volunteer in a teenage mentoring program.
Wow.
And as it turned,
Heron.
Well, as it turned out, there were, I think, maybe 10 people there.
Yeah.
They were all from the same organization who were sponsoring it. I was the only guy. I was the only outsider to show up.
Man. So all the teenagers belong to you. Is this what's happening?
Well, no, these were not these were the mentors.
Clearly. Okay.
Who had showed up because they're looking for other people to get involved, and that's why they did. But I was the only one they snagged. So they were right on me big time, So I had
on shit, as we say in Australia.
I had a really good audience, So because they were all pretending to be really interested in everything I said.
But did they give you the all clear, or do they still need to do things before they give you the all clear?
Oh no, we just met and had a glass of wine at a bar.
Oh, cool.
No, not a bar, but it was sort of. It's got a bar in it. And a lounge and
so Anaheim way or LA way?
No, this was actually about a mile and a half from here. In when you were in Garden Grove, did you check out downtown Garden Grove on Main Street?
No, we didn't.
Really? Okay, that's actually the only. Did you see Costco?
No.
Okay, well,
in the shop tour of Garden Grove, I missed
really.
Costco.
Yeah, well, Costco is on one side of Garden Grove Boulevard, and then the driveway that enters into Costco goes out on the other side of Garden Grove Boulevard into what's called Main Street, Garden Grove, which is a very narrow little street with angled parking.
Okay.
Like they used to have in the 40s. Yeah. And it's basically, it was traditionally downtown Garden Grove. It was the beginning of Garden Grove, and it still has sort of that flavor. It's all, it's more shishi now, but anyway, so this is a restaurant in there. And it's a nice restaurant. Good food. And, yeah.
So when are you going to be mentoring teens, Heron?
Well, I'm not going to be mentoring teams, but I may be teaching the mentors.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I have no interest in doing one.
So you're like the boot camp. If you can pass with Heron, you'll be let loose on teens.
Well, I don't. No, we didn't. No, there's no decision at all.
Okay.
The guy, the honcho of the deal, was there last night, and we talked for quite a while. And he was very interested, and we just agreed that we'd exchange cards, and then we'd talk. But I had an opportunity to lay a whole bunch of shit on them. And they got it.
Both figuratively and literally, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I did the surgeon's story.
Oh, yes.
And not one of them got it.
Of course, that's not the level they're operating on, Heron.
And the other, and two of them admitted to having heard it before.
Yes.
And being stumped again. They knew there was a good solution to it that made them feel real stupid, but they couldn't remember what it was.
What's the possible solution there?
Yeah, but they were
stereotype.
The thing, it was wonderful because they were really open to all this stuff, and I could see that even again, if they initially were just being polite, that that can lead, acting a certain way engenders actually becoming that way. You're familiar with those theories, I suppose. So, so in a sense, they became really good students and really sort of got what I was talking about. And I did a short thing on the 5 stupidities and the word the. I mean, I just rattled them off except for the word the, but gave a couple of examples of that. And they got it immediately. And you could see that, and the thing is, what they're doing with their mentees, as they call them, I don't know, is that the correct word? Mentor and mentee?
The mentors.
Yes. Anyway, is that, they're fun. They raise like $50,000 a year.
Wow.
And all their mentors are, nobody's paid except for like 4 people that basically do the fundraising and take care of the
rent. It's funny that, isn't it? The fundraisers get paid.
Yeah, well, it works.
Yes.
This organization it's small. They have a room somewhere. I don't remember where, but it's like 1,300 square feet, one big room. And once a week, they get together with all of the mentors and all the mentees, and they have these planned activities. And then during the week, the mentors meet one-on-one with their mentees, and they're all the other thing is that they're it's a thing for the Vietnamese community.
I was about to ask that actually.
They're all Vietnamese.
Yeah.
I mean, in order to be eligible to be a mentee, you have to be a member of the Garden Grove and Westminster, Vietnamese community. And anyway, it was just a really good group of people. It was quite fun. I'm looking forward to talking some more with them and seeing if I can't get together with the mentors sometime and give them a rundown on the 5 stupidities so they can use this shit with their kids.
Oh man,
yeah, loved it. So that happened. Let me see here, and then of course Connor Seitz Bowen wrote again, and I don't know if you wanted,
my view is actually that we kind of tackled it in.
Yeah.
I mean, our tackling was a superset of what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Connor, you're going to have a fresh question if we're going to raise it on the Stone Ape in the future. That one too close to what we discussed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think I've sort of spent my wad on that.
Yeah.
But what I realize is, though, again, a world without Facebook, Twitter, email, phone, speech. What would you, which one would? I get them all. I want them all. I want everything. God, I don't have to choose between anything. Start.
Yeah, my feeling is we've already covered.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I wanted to say it again. I think it's important. I think that's in the way of thinking in this world is that we've got to pick one thing that that we have to do and and forsake everything else and in some sense that's true for you at this or me at this moment of time. I can only do so many things at once, but for us as a species or civilization, we can do any fucking thing we want. I want all of that stuff.
Yeah, the only thing that's changed from my perspective is no sucking's okay now, Connor. So, moving on.
No sucking sounds very much like no sucking.
Yes.
So I wasn't quite sure what you were talking about there.
Anyway, next topic, Heron.
No, I'm done.
You're done?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a variety of topics. Again, many of them submitted by listeners. Many of them submitted by Gabriel. I spoke to Gabriel, actually, and had a nice chat with him. I think possibly on Tuesday night, maybe Wednesday night. I think it might have been Wednesday night, actually. And we've agreed to do a podcast of maybe only 4 or 5 episodes. This one has fallen off. Well, not necessarily fallen off, but basically she's had ailments for the past couple of weeks, so we haven't recorded, and I'm starting to feel like it might be just one additional thing for her. So if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
Gabriel asked me to talk about the Leicester YMCA.
Wait, who did?
Gabriel, our listener.
Yeah.
Because he said I started talking about... He's running the gauntlet, as we say in the business. He's gone back to episode 0, the pilot, and he's listening all the way through, Heron.
Oh, no.
So we're going to get historical questions all the way through.
Yeah, take notes, man. And if you find little things here and there that can be snipped out and used...
do Heron's work for him.
Damn right. Well, I'm not I can judge it, but I mean, I don't want to listen to that shit.
See what's happening here, Gabriel? I'm not able to tell a Leicester YMCA story. Heron is doing his job. Very good. I did want to talk a little bit about the Leicester YMCA.
Okay, Leicester YMCA.
So Leicester is a place. It's a place in the UK. And in this place, in the centre of town, it would be Main Street if it was Garden Grove, there is a large, I don't know, built in the 19th century sometime, building which is the YMCA. It's pretty obvious. It's the ugly building as you head into town. And I stayed there for about, I want to say 4 months, maybe 3 months actually, when I first moved to the UK. My father lives in Leicester, and my plan originally was to go and live with him, and I was at a stage where basically I was being bled dry by lawyers. I left the US. In fact, I left a couple of startups, and I had a fellow back in Australia who was looking to make his millions out of me, and he hadn't gotten what he wanted. So I had a variety of somewhat hostile entities that seemed to think that they could get the money that they wanted to make out of me through the period of time that I was in the US still chasing me. And lawyers that were supposedly representing me, but also basically sucking my blood as well. So I arrived in the UK with the view that I could stay with my father and his new woman, who he hadn't married at the time. And the woman who I knew, she actually had come to the UK with my father from Australia, decided after about 2 weeks that I'd been there for too long. She wasn't a particularly pleasant individual, and my father's no longer married to her, so I feel no moral objection to talk about her in this fashion. Anyway, I looked at a few houses or a few terrace apartments, and because I needed money, and because I was...
It sounded like a few terrorist apartments.
Well,
no, terrorist apartments is what you said.
Our UK listeners may agree with you. So I ended up at the YMCA. The YMCA was used to house deportees, basically. And,
at the time you were staying.
At the time that I was there, they had tuberculosis. The fleas, the fleas actually ate through my big toe on my right foot. It was quite extraordinary, and it was quite horrendous, and it was pretty appalling. The couple that were in the room next to me, the guy would just beat his wife, basically. So my evenings were spent listening to him beating his wife.
And getting your toe eaten off.
And they were being deported to some Middle African country.
Probably America.
No. There was some Middle African country.
Tennessee, probably.
Because his wife would plead to him in this language that I couldn't understand, and then he'd still beat the crap out of her. I actually started to realize that this was very similar to the stuff that they did to people in Guantanamo, in terms of just subjecting them to this audio. Yeah. On the other side, there was a guy who would have been, and he was a white guy like me. In fact, he was actually a local resident, and he would play Tupac between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. really loudly. So when the guy was done beating his wife and she was just like in a crying puddle, the Tupac would start on the other side. And I bought him a pair of headphones, which is where you cut me off in the last time I told the story. And I gave them to him to try and see if he'd listen to his headphones rather than blasting the Tupac.
Yeah. And did he go for that?
And he opened his door, he took the headphones from me, and then threw them in a pile of headphones that other people had already bought for him. And then shut the door. So
a pile of headphones.
Yeah. When I went to complain...
I don't even care if this is true or not.
It's true.
It's a good story.
It's unbelievably true. Anyway, then I asked to move rooms, funnily enough. One night, actually, the guy who'd been beating his wife decided to, and even after I complained about him beating his wife, he decided to go out at about 11 p.m. And for some reason, he had a large boombox that he had on a timer. And at 1 a.m., the boombox went off, and it was blasting.
He wasn't home
for 3 hours in this time. The walls were paper thin.
Man.
So I went downstairs. They came upstairs. They opened up his room. The boombox went off, and either there was some contraband in the room, or they saw the blood from the wife splattered everywhere. And that guy was thankfully removed. The next guy who moved in was a loud masturbator, but we'll move on from that. So when I asked to move rooms, mainly because of the Tupac guy, they put me in a room that had shit smeared on the walls and cigarette butts. And when I pointed out that I just gave up, I moved back to the Tupac room.
Do you have to pay for a room at the YMCA?
Yeah, you do. It was actually calculated based on the benefits payments that people received in the UK.
Okay. Because I was thinking they should be paying you to stay there. You know, they got that all backwards. You know.
Well, the funny thing was, I was directly opposite the showers that would frequently leak, and what they did was, rather than fix the showers, they'd come into the room and they'd shave off the door because the door would swell and you couldn't get in and out of the room. The solution was not to fix the showers.
No, of course, it's just shave the door, right?
You shave the door.
Perfectly good sense. Yeah.
The other thing was they had a washing machine and dryer where you had to pay with, I don't know, p pieces, maybe even pound coins. And the washing machine and the dryer were out of phase. So the washing machine, I think, took slightly longer than the dryer. Or no, the dryer took slightly less. Anyway, there was something where
they were different.
You always had, like, damp clothes, or you always had super dry clothes because you just put in double coinage for it.
Yeah, okay.
It was very, very rustic, and it made me realize it's actually a point of rebuilding in my life.
Rustic, that's an interesting name for it.
It made me realize, actually, and I'd had similar, I mean, I hadn't had experiences like this in Australia. In Australia, I lived in a garden shed for 2.5 years, where...
which wasn't bad at all compared to the YMCA.
In Leicester, yeah. But the Leicester YMCA was a turning point. Anyway, Gabriel, that's the Leicester YMCA. I eventually got out. The interesting thing, actually, for a majority of my time there, because the legal fees and other...
How long were you there?
3 months.
Oh.
The legal fees and other things were just constantly piling in. I was actually working for Ericsson in a really good job. They paid me overtime for working on weekends because my spiritual advisor was in the US. I worked over the weekends, and I made a crap load of money through that time there.
But you lived at the YMCA.
Because all my money was going to pay off lawyers and resolve the things that were going on in the US.
Shit. Oh.
So, yeah, that's the YMCA.
God damn.
But yeah, my perspective...
It wouldn't take much to create a better world. You know, it wouldn't take much at all.
So you've got to appreciate, the shit-smeared room, I actually had to meet face-to-face with a guy who was sympathetic to the Tupac player. He basically said, what are you going to do? And I said, maybe you could ask him to turn it down. He's a troubled kid. What are you going to do? So then he put me into the shit-smeared room, and I just said, no, look, put me back. And the shit-smeared room, I think, was for complainers. I think they had a room set up, like, if you complain, we'll throw you in the shit-smeared room. Anyway. That was the Leicester YMCA. You've got to have a sense of humour through this, folks, otherwise you'll go nuts.
Well, yeah, life in the universe, you know. Yeah. Without a sense of humour, you're in big trouble.
You talk about tube socks. Every time I put my socks on, I'm reminded of the Leicester YMCA, because my feet have never been the same since. The thing that you can do, actually, if you're ever in a situation, listeners, where fleas are eating through your big toe, and I actually saw this on Castaway. I don't think maybe I saw Castaway before I stayed at the Leicester YMCA. You can chew up a little rag, and you can stick it in the hole where the fleas are eating and it's festering, and then you chew it some more, and you keep doing this, and eventually it'll heal itself, folks. So that little bit of additional
that's
information.
Good to know. I can, let's hope I don't find myself in a situation where I need that.
Yes. But if anyone does who's listening in, that little bit of tidbit's free. Cereal. You may have even heard of this, Heron. There's been a podcast. So, This American Life, I'm a bit fishy associated with NPR. It seems a bit too like the Democratic Party, basically, to me. And I've also told a story, for folks who've never heard this, NPR in Las Vegas ran a funding drive for 6 months because they didn't get enough money. And through this time, they actually described the cost of all the programs that they put together. And I realised what we do here and what tens of thousands of podcasters potentially do is the new model for NPR, and NPR is the old model for NPR.
Interesting.
Anyway, This American Life is one of the few successful NPR programs because they have a podcast now and they have sponsorship through the podcast. Serial is a particular murder story spread out over 12 episodes that looks at motive and a variety of other factors about this girl that was killed in Baltimore, I think. I've listened to it. My spiritual advisor listened to it initially. In fact, she woke up through the week with night terrors. I'm suspicious that the Serial podcast was due to this.
Could have been the jalapenos.
No. Well, I originally thought it was the pneumonia, and then I thought, no, actually, because I talked to her about her dreams, particularly because she woke up, like, screaming at 3 a.m. one night. I was just like, the next morning, what were you dreaming leading into that? Like, were you either dreaming that you had tightness in chest, or as it turned out, she was dreaming that all her family were murderers, and they were each trying to kill her. So, yeah, Serial, provides a number of interesting narratives, actually. I'd recommend it for folks who have heard about it, just the experience. If you haven't heard about it, the thing that made me listen to it, aside from my spiritual advisor's insistence that I did, was this notion that podcasts are becoming mainstream. And I've been waiting for podcasts to become mainstream. A number of podcasts have become mainstream.
Yeah.
And I guess, look, to be fair, model rail radio is pretty bloody mainstream. I mean,
it's identifiable. It's got a good audience. That's about as mainstream as you can get. I mean, it's not huge, but it's well established.
2 topics that came out of Serial impacted me. The first was associated with orthodox religions and their side dating methods.
And their what?
Side dating methods. So orthodox religions typically basically eliminate any possibility of teenage dating, unless it's done within very strict confines. And part of the narrative in this is that the 2 participants, or not even participants, 2 of the characters in this melees in Serial, both come from different orthodox perspectives. And they have to date, but they have to cover up the fact that they're dating. I don't think we've ever talked about this on Stone 8, but from when I was about 17 through to, I guess, when I was about 19, maybe 16 to 19, some period of time, roughly 3 years, I dated an Orthodox Jewish girl. And I did this as the good boyfriend. With all the formality and all the rigours and all the nonsense associated with that, down to the point where I got a scholarship to go to Israel and I learnt Hebrew. As, I don't know what even you'd call it. Like,
anything to get laid.
Basically. And believe me, this was a long and tortured task. Involving countless strange meals. And I may have told you this, the crotch-eating dog. Her family had, it was a Newfoundland that would literally latch onto my crotch every time I came in the house. And the thing about it was, I developed this strategy where I'd lift one leg up slightly and, rest my knee on the dog's snout as it was, desperately going for my crotch. Very, very curious. Anyway, through this whole period of time, this girl had another guy, who funnily enough was a Catholic and was relatively orthodox, who she was fucking the whole time. And there were a number of incidents through this period.
And you were putting up with all this bullshit, and
damn
that fucking Catholic was getting all the goods, man.
In fact, at the end of the conversation, the Catholic guy called me up. I knew him as a kind of long-distant friend, or long-distant. We'd been to high school, or maybe college together. Anyway,
an acquaintance.
Someone I knew anyway. He called me up after this had all come out, and he said, "This whole time, you've been having intellectual..." He didn't say intellectual, he said deep conversations with her. This whole time. You've been, talking to her and nurturing her in that way. I mean,
What, was he offended? He was offended that you were getting all the good stuff and not all he was getting was laid.
Exactly. And the thing about it was they were incredibly sneaky about it. And the other curious thing was her father once, when I was about 17, and I used to go to bed relatively early, her father once called up my mother very belligerently and said, "Wake your son up, my daughter is in his bed." And my mother came into my room, and in fact, no, she didn't. She refused. She said categorically, "I know my son is asleep." And I came to, we were effectively in high school. It was called college, but it was the last 2 years of high school. And I said to her, this happened, and she kind of looked a little red and looked aside, and then it kind of came out that she was with this Alistair character. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. And then when it all came out that basically they've been having this relationship for years, all these things like that started falling into place.
Everything starts to make sense.
Yeah. So, my perspective with regards to these things...
I got dumped by a girl because I was Catholic, or not by her, but her father refused to allow her to go out with me because I was Catholic.
Yeah, it's strange. It's strange, that whole thing. But, the notion of orthodox side dating is funnily enough, actually... It's not really it was only through this context of kind of illicit love or what have you that just annoyed me. But it's something that I guess is simmering in my personality, and I just need to hear about it in order to recount this occasion. The funny thing was, because I got a scholarship to Israel, the local Jewish community, and when I didn't take the scholarship, because obviously I found out what she was doing.
Yeah, right, you weren't going to get laid, so the hell with it.
Screw this bullshit. Learning Hebrew? I think not. the local Jewish community started a telephone harassment scheme on me. Like, firstly, I was besmirching this girl's credibility, which I think is very curious. But secondly, I was taking away a scholarship for a good Jewish boy because the community had already nominated which kid was going to Israel. And it wasn't me, and I got his scholarship. Anyway.
Well, so why don't they just give it to him then?
That was a little bit too detailed. They hadn't really worked that thing out yet. Anyway. So, that's my orthodox idea. The second thing is associated with prison and the kind of psychopaths that actually survive at prison. I think of prison, mainly because of my education, as being equivalent to a kind of continuation of school. I mean, although I thought university was a kind of continuation of school, I think prison is a logical kind of continuation of school as well. I have this persistent fear. I don't dream that I'm in prison. I don't dream associated with... I do dream associated with confinement, but never associated with prison.
See, I don't mind the confinement. If I was in jail, I would hope that I would be in solitary. Because the problem I would have would be dealing with all those fucking language monkeys in there. You know, I can easily spend time by myself. That's not a problem. But if I had to deal with those fucking language monkeys in prison, I'd be in big trouble.
I frequently reflect, am I doing something that might lend me to, might cause me to go to prison? It's a strange thing, and I think it's the last vestigial remains of my time spent in Australia that I still think that, there's a likelihood that I could end up in prison if I'm not careful.
Yeah. I don't, that's funny, I've never really given that much thought. That's interesting. Yeah, that's just not something I've ever really worried about.
So speaking of language monkeys, I am now the vice president of the Spartan Keyes, what is it called? Neighbourhood Action Committee. Vice president of that organisation.
You're the vice president?
I was elected vice president.
Of the
Spartan Keyes Neighbourhood Action Committee, the NAC.
Neighbourhood Action Committee.
The action is important here. And I realised after I was elected by vote, unopposed, but still by vote, that I am not angry enough in these kind of circumstances. The circumstance is that the city funds the space that we meet in. And 3 of the participants, I think even 3 of the board members, are paid or at least volunteer in the space. So the space is very important to them. More important, actually, than representing the community against the city. So the city person comes in and is all happy and is welcomed with open arms, and we can't get cops out here. And, we have belligerent criminals just wandering around, shaking down, local shopkeepers and things like that. And I actually became angry after, as I was walking home and kind of going to bed following the election, that I'm going to have to actively represent my concerns in these circumstances.
Yeah, well, I'm a little curious. When you say you can't get a police response, I mean, what does that mean?
That means that if, for example, so I had my hair cut. In fact, on 2 occasions I've had my hair cut, and the shop owner's been shaken down some way.
Shaken down?
Well, in one case, it was 2 homeless guys that basically came in, sat down, glared at her, went outside and started pushing around people that would be customers. And
they said, give us $20 and we'll leave.
Yes. Although that wasn't said in my presence, it was clear what was going on.
Okay, but I mean, that's what's going on. Is they cause an uproar and then want some money and then they'll go away.
I called the police and they hung up on me.
Well, that's a good start.
Yeah.
They hung up on you.
Yeah.
Well, I say it's that fucking Tom Barbalet again.
That Skippy.
Fucking asshole troublemaker.
Well, yeah.
Fuck him.
Yeah. The vice president of the
he's
Spartan
probably
Keyes
a fucking faggot Australian,
Exactly. Yeah. Did you say faggot?
Yes.
Very good. Just wanted to clarify because I was.
Well, so I mean, no. What I'm getting, I mean, you're saying there is a pattern. This isn't just something that you have happened to run into, but in fact, they are ignoring this particular neighborhood, but responding to others. Or are they?
Oh no! Look, you can't.
Are there other action committees for other neighborhoods that have formed?
Yes.
Oh, have you been in contact with them?
No, but
that might be interesting.
My responsibility is to get,
Well, yeah, but it might be interesting to see what's going on, and if it's just your problem or if it's a wider problem.
It's the surrounding. This is a neighbourhood of about 1,000 houses. There's another neighbourhood over of 1,000 houses. There's one to the south as well.
And is there any geographical differentiation between them, or is
they're within a mile? It's pretty rough.
I mean, where one begins and another ends is clear, or
it's pretty rough. Historic neighbourhoods, which one up from us is a historic neighbourhood. They actually have like signs.
That's right. They've all got his. How old? Yeah, are those all pretty? Those neighborhoods have been there for quite a while, right?
Well, most of the houses around here that are still standing from the original houses are more than 100 years old.
Oh, okay, all right. So the neighborhood itself is more than is been there for a long time.
Of that age.
Yeah. Okay.
The folks to the south have problems with prostitution. They've actively posted about that. The police do nothing about that.
Have you gone to any city council meetings?
No, that's the next step. But my first step is to get our local city council representative, who's an ex-cop, who I've met. He attended the first one that I was at.
Yeah.
I've just got to start being a troublemaker.
You don't have to be a troublemaker. You can just go and... I wouldn't think of it as being a troublemaker. In fact, I'd try to make friends with him.
I think I have, because I'm the only person that actually films the crimes happening. And he was certainly very receptive to that. I followed San Jose Police Department's guidelines, and then because they weren't going to turn up, I started filming the stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, there were a group of residents there. There's been an alleyway that people actually have garages on, so it's like an access alleyway that people drive up and what have you.
Yeah.
That basically has been a pond for the past 7 years. Actually, more than that, because the city said 6 years ago they were going to fix it. And
do you know what their financial situation is?
Yeah, they've got $30 million they're holding on to and not releasing for public works.
Okay, so all right, so this is okay.
This is
because they're going
pure
broke.
incompetence. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so a group of these people came very servilely.
So are you going to be the next mayor?
Who knows, Heron?
I think we should run Tom Barbalet for mayor
of San Jose.
We've had enough of this shit. Oh, this is San Jose. I thought this was some smaller.
No, this is San Jose. 900 million.
Okay, so it's just a neighborhood. That, in fact, there are other people. Okay,
yeah, there are.
Your neighborhood nobody gives a shit about. Where the moneyed people are, they're probably getting fine cut.
No, it's amazing. You see, I think some of these people are also private cops. And I've actually seriously started to consider and look into how much private cops cost. Because I'm paying, $14,000 to the city for nothing.
Yeah, you could take it and write it off in your taxes.
I will petition the city, actually, and say, if you guys don't pay policing, then let's get in private cops and let's take it off the taxes that I pay. Yeah,
I'll hire them and send you the bill.
Yeah. Anyway. So, no, I realized, actually, that I was being very passive, and I was being very passive initially because, I was new and I wanted to suss this thing out.
Well, that's a good way to start, is to just sort of sit there and
the other thing is
check
that
it out.
There's a guy who lives on my street who's part of the Neighbourhood Action Committee. He's one of the board at large, who's been here for 25 years, and he's one of these kind of bitter old guys, which basically seems to be a majority of the folk, either bitter old women or bitter old guys, that have just been here forever and probably don't pay any property tax, but at the same point are just like, ho-hum.
Yeah.
And, that's clearly worked up.
Yeah, what is the neighborhood makeup? You got, what percentage of the total are like that?
Well, you see, on either side of us, we have people who bought their properties for less than 10% of what we paid for this place. And they did it on one side because the guy's sister is a real estate agent and found it as a depressed property and bought it 10 years ago. And the other side because the family internally, which is very curious but apparently still legal, sold it to themselves for considerably less money, i.e. taking a loss on the house was better than the property tax over a period of time.
Yeah.
Which seems very strange to me, but it's what they did.
Yeah.
So, these two folks,
Are there any people like you who have moved in recently with high hopes of...
There are 4 new sales on the street. I'm trying to organise through next door.
Those may be the people that
exactly.
Because they've got some hopes for the future.
Well, no, they've put in money. They actually have money in the game, like serious money. Like I've put serious money into this city. For at least a year, and we'll continue to do so.
Yeah, that's a good point to make to them, is that, you got people coming in here and investing, and we're not getting any fucking support from you.
Exactly. And I think also the perception in the neighborhood is just, completely lost its way through something.
So let me ask you a question, because I'm still not clear. The moneyed parts of town are getting okay service.
Well, better service than we're getting.
I mean, or is just the whole fucking city is just completely incompetent?
I don't know. I mean, certainly I have a co-worker that lives in another part of San Jose, and he bought into a new build community, which I think is less likely to have the kinds of crimes that we see.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, anyway, it's an interesting. I
think you ought to run for mayor, man.
Yeah.
I'll support you. Just send him over, and I'll be happy to talk about how great a mayor you'd be.
The problem is that all the politicians through the political season apparently walk the street, but I'm at work at the time, so I never actually get to meet these schmucks until they're actually elected. I mean, not having jobs or not having jobs that require you, which typically means that you're either... I mean, many of them seem to come from kind of moneyed positions where they can kind of take time off work.
Well, sure, they got time to do this stuff. Exactly. Yeah. Politics is a rich man's game.
Man, in this country, more than anywhere.
Yeah.
So, that's the current Vice President San Jose status. I have had requests from listeners to talk about San Jose a little bit more. So while we're talking about crazy bureaucracy, I have nominally for more than 2 years now been the industry outreach person on the International Society of Artificial Life board. Board here has many meanings. And I called in this morning to their monthly Skype call, which is at a bad time for me anyway, and I've asked them if they could change the time just one time, maybe every 3 months. No budging on that. I called in because of the problems that I'd been having with the mailing list that they don't maintain, but they still have some interest in. And also, as it turned out through the call early on, because I am the industry outreach person, they wanted an update from me. I explained to them what I've been doing with the Conscious in the Cloud series. I explained to them that I've been mentoring a couple of startups for total kind of spread out, and no luck associated with Google or Apple or Netflix providing the bundles of cash apparently they felt that they were promised by working with me. Halfway through, actually, I finished, my update, and a fellow started talking about how he'd read an article on something, and then my audio was cut, and I fell off the call, and I called back in. 5 minutes later, it took because I rebooted my machine, did all the usual practices to work out what was going on. And the guy was still talking, and then he just wrapped up, and then the chair of the board said, Tom, do you think any of these 3 solutions are important, all of which required me to basically hold a conference or go to one of their conferences in Europe or Japan or Mexico or wherever they're being held and put on a workshop at cost to me, obviously. And I said, look, I'm moving towards audio podcasts, basically. I tried through Conscious in the Cloud. I could possibly do something locally, but the problem I find locally is people just don't show up. And then another fellow started talking about how what they should do is actually have conferences right next to biology conferences so the biologists could get involved, which kind of was an undertone of like, who the fuck is this Tom Barbalet guy anyway? And clearly we're not going to have the bundles of cash that we wanted through industry. When he concluded, I asked them, have any of you actually heard the audio, most of which has been posted publicly associated with what I've tried to do in the Conscious and Cloud series? Absolute silence, and the chair asked me what I was asking, and I said, no, look, the last one I did was associated with noble apes, because this guy had been talking about how biologists were obviously the way the artificial life community should be communicating, and only biologists would understand the deep, profound work in the artificial life community. And I said, actually, my outreach to industry has been very pluralist and tried to bring as many people as possible, and really, this is about moving out of kind of common spaces.
Yeah, take them anywhere you can get them.
Exactly. By which point I was cut off, and the meeting continued associated with how MIT Press, who I won't do any business with, is the only means of collecting funds for this. And I said at the end, quite quickly, that I'd basically resolved the issue associated with the mailing list, and the call kind of concluded. I'm really feeling very strongly, and I had even prior to this call, that I should have nothing more to do with these individuals. And the thing that struck me through the call was that they thought I'd promised them cash and sponsorship and legitimacy in industry. And what I had tried to do was actually bring people into the conversation and tried to, get a variety of things that weren't actually going to provide them money, because basically, if you run conferences internationally, and if that's your thing, they're actually quite expensive, and if you don't have people turning up to the conferences, then you really want sponsorship. And I realized there was a kind of disconnect between what I was doing, and I should also point out here, Bruce Damer historically, when he was doing his PhD, recorded everything. every conversation he had, he recorded. And he provided me the audio as his PhD supervisor. One of these individuals had tried to get Bruce to get money into his research institution. He's now in a completely different institution. That institution, the previous one, closed down. And I realised that this whole desperation associated with cash and industry, I mean, I didn't really say explicitly what I said previously. The only outreach I've done has been very useful to get people out of academia and into industry. And once the people are in industry, they forget about me. So if I work with a university and work with graduate students, what happens is the graduate students go and work at Google and Apple, and I never hear from them again when I assist them in this life. The whole notion that I'm putting something back into academia through my interaction is basically blocked by academics that aren't interested in this stuff. So, yeah, I thought after this thing, and the other thing that was really striking to me was that none of them knew who I was. None of them knew what I did. None of them listened to the Conscious in the Cloud series, and they were on a completely different narrative. It was like I was talking one thing, they were talking something completely different.
Yep.
So, easy. One of the people who I have communicated with is a fellow by the name of Rudy Rucker. I've known Rudy for 15 years now. I've corresponded with him periodically. He was based at San Jose State University. He threw one of the biota conferences actually at San Jose State in 2001. And I walked through San Jose State. It's in my walk to walking into downtown. It's a very interesting campus. It's a campus that runs for, I think, maybe 3, maybe 5 city blocks in either direction. So it's a square campus confined by the roads. And it's a very industrial campus, and it seems to me to be a very interesting place. So I made contact again with Rudy Rucker this week in order to try and potentially do what I've been doing Conscious in the Cloud at Netflix, but do it at San Jose State with a bunch of kids, or students, who I think are considerably more receptive to a lot of the stuff that I talk about than, you know. And after 3 emails, actually after 2 emails to be fair, Rudy emailed me back like he didn't know who I was. He then pieced together who I was through a string of emails following on, which was actually quite sweet because they were spread between my work address and my home email address. But it made me realise, actually, and I've kind of had this, I know a lot of people that did a lot of stuff 20 years ago. And I don't know anyone who's doing anything now in terms of getting into universities, and most of the academics that I track leave academia very rapidly. So I'm in this strange kind of quandary where, and maybe people who listen to Stone Ape, I mean, I talked to Gabriel about this specifically. You know, there are places of outreach with regards to this kind of information, but unfortunately the people are just going to have to find me. Because I put in some effort to find the people, but...
Well, that's all you can do. You just put it out there as best you can at the time, and that's out of your hands then.
So the last topic I have down is ARG number 111.
Yes.
Now, the fellow who wrote this actually, for the first time, I think, I saw his face through the week, which was very nice. And if we don't get too downstream, I might actually name him in the podcast. I don't know whether he wanted to remain anonymous through the post.
I didn't see a name associated.
No, I intentionally didn't post it because he didn't I mean, it was done through a kind of convoluted means, and I didn't want to immediately identify him with this view because I thought it was a view that actually a number of listeners who corresponded with me through the week agreed with.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, actually, because I also spent a portion of the week thinking about how we could actually do this. And the only thought that I have, if it involves me, is if prior to the Stone Ape recordings that we record typically on a Friday evening, which means really we'd start recording Stone Ape later, we did a video thing for 15 minutes associated with a topic that we wouldn't discuss in the Stone Ape, and that became the video.
Why would... Okay, yeah, all right.
Or we could discuss it in greater detail in the Stone Ape and actually get people
It could just be an excerpt from the Stone Ape.
Well, the problem with the excerpt part is that the way I do my recording is completely orthogonal in audio to the way that I do video recording.
Oh, yeah, video. But does it have to be video, though?
Well, if you're putting it on YouTube, it does.
No, it doesn't have to be video. It just has to have some graphics that accompany it.
My feeling is, look,
I've watched a lot. Of course, Alan Watts is one thing, but there's plenty of 5-minute long Alan Watts things with just pictures behind it with millions of views.
Here's what we're looking for.
But he's Alan Watts.
Here's what we're looking for. Yeah. We're looking for time, as we do with the podcasts. Every couple of weeks, people can expect there'll be at least one, sometimes 2 Stone Ape podcasts. You need to put up video with the same frequency, or better, in fact, more. Yeah. Than you would in audio podcast.
Yeah. daily would be good. Yeah.
And my perspective with this is...
well, you can record them a lot in advance, though, too.
You can do that as well. You can spread it out. But you still require... And as soon as we finish tonight, I'm going to the local model rail club because one of the participants in the local model rail club, who's also a Stone Ape listener, let me know in no uncertain terms in the last recording of Model Rail Radio that not only would I be kicked out, tarred and feathered out of the local Model Rail Club, I would be one of the few people that would be discommunicated before any possibility if I didn't attend at least one more of these. Well, probably many more, but at least one more. So as soon as I'm done with you, I'm going to that.
You have to show up
event.
there. Yeah. Okay.
But my time is scarce. And my thinking time is particularly scarce because work renders me in circumstances where I can't always do the kinds of stuff that we do on Stone Ape, and sometimes I cancel based on that.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that the time is maximized. If I'm doing something...
Well, Mott's put up something, basically suggesting people vote for segments that
Topics.
Are good. Yeah. And
but that's with your old... I thought that was with your old material where he was then going to take it.
But I'm thinking for the Stone Ape podcast, we got a guy now going through them from beginning to end. If we could find particular things in there that were really good and just excerpt them and then build a little live thing around it.
I did that with our serious approach over, I think, 5 shows and got about 7 segments of audio through that.
Yeah.
Which I think I'm going to go back and listen, but may stand up to the test of time.
I think there may be quite a few.
Clearly.
Fairly good, 3 or 4 or 5 minute
there's
segments.
7 to 10 minute segments. The way we do...
They don't have to be that long. Why do they have to be 7 to 10?
That's how long it takes us to evolve even small topics, Heron.
Well, whatever. Okay, if that's what it turns out to be. But I would just say probably for sure under 10 minutes, but I can imagine a podcast that's only 3 minutes long. But
that's not what we do, Heron. That's not what you and I do. Our wrapping time is at minimum 7 minutes.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I can live with that. Yeah. I'm just saying I'm not going to arbitrarily cut it off. If there's something at 3, then go for it. Yeah. But the likelihood of that happening is probably slim.
Yes. Anyway, you wanted to talk more about ARG 111.
Oh, well, it was just that, again, it's become really clear to me that I'm really busy with internal work right now.
Yeah.
Preparing myself to be ready to go public with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's getting clear to me that people resonate to it. Like I say, at that meeting last night, pretty much everybody could follow me in what I was saying and saw that it had applicability with the kids they're dealing with.
One of the reasons I listened to Serial actually was so my spiritual advisor would listen to the Crime Fighting Noble Ape audio. In fact, that was our agreement. I would listen to 12 hours of audio if she would listen to 1 hour of audio.
Oh, man.
So, and she finished it, and she said it was really good, and she said, I need to get a publicist this year. And what I'm probably going to do, actually, is get a publicist this year, which means whether you like it or not, Heron, your stuff is going to go public. Well, and irrespective of where you are ready...
No, I can deal with that.
I'm going to pay someone to get this stuff out here, because I'm frustrated by
I can deal with that. That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's not going to change in a sense. Well, it'll change everything. I mean, if there was actually somebody saying, okay, what if we do this, this, and this, and here's how you do this and this, and this is what it's going to take if you do this and that.
So Gabriel's Science of Astrology podcast, which you can't actually get through iTunes, you can only get through TalkShoe, featured a recording yesterday evening, I think, associated with language monkeys, amongst other things. And I listened to it after it was posted to get a sense of what he was talking about. Firstly, the pronunciation of my name is Barbalay. Easy to say, Barbalay. Anyone, because I say hello, Heron, hello, Tom, you don't get to hear the pronunciation of my name standardly in a Stone Ape lesson. Really, it's Barbalay. Barbalay. Anyway. Now we're past that. When people listen to this thing, they, maybe because they don't understand the stuff that I'm saying because of my accent, obviously, they tend to gravitate to your work. It's not about simulation, irony of living in crime-filled cities, all this kind of stuff. It's about the 5 stupidities. It's about language monkeys. It's about
a large part, but these are all people have come in just recently since we did that salon thing.
I think.
These people that came from the salon, right? They'd never been here before.
Who knows? My perspective is that folks who listen, who I've surveyed, who communicate with me, who oftentimes have come from stuff that I've produced historically, more often than not gravitate very swiftly to the ideas that you're putting out here.
Well, that's part of what we do here. Yeah, I'm here doing my thing, and you're here doing your thing.
Well, actually, what interests me through this is few people, maybe because I'm not quite as explicit, or although I have works out there that people can consume, I think the Five Stupidity, it's a bit like Dawkins.
Your stuff is way more rarefied than what I'm doing. My stuff has application in people's everyday lives. Noble Ape and artificial intelligence and biology is of interest to a very, very small number of people. Most people don't have the luxury to be able to give their intellectual resources to those kinds of things. They're trying to pay the rent. They're trying to raise their kids. They're worried about all sorts of shit. The world's going to hell. It's crazy as fuck, And the stuff I'm talking about has some application in how to negotiate that. But, and the, Noble Ape stuff does too. But you have to be in a very different space to see the connection.
I'm not arguing that.
Yeah.
I guess what interests me is that, I'm trying to think of a metaphor that's in no way sexual. I can't do that, so let's move on from this.
Let's just go with it.
No, let's move on from that. So I guess my perspective is, irrespective of what you want or would like, just through the format of this recording and the way that people very swiftly gravitate because you repeat yourself.
Yes, of course. I say the same shit over and over again.
Yeah. That they realise, the Stone Ape thing's about the Five Stupidities, it's about language monkeys, that's what it's about.
Yeah, that's right, man.
And also,
the voice in your head is not something you are doing.
Yes. You are both the wiser and more attractive part of Stone Ape, so obviously they're going to gravitate to you.
Of course, you're right.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, why am I kidding myself here? Anyway, so my perspective is, this thing is going to be happening irrespective of your perspectives of time and, domain.
Yeah. Well, when it's out of my control, then I accommodate myself to it.
The other thing that this author mentioned was that the doing actually helps the doing, funnily enough, and not doing... Yeah.
No, taking action, really elevates the exponential curve considerably. And that's sort of why I haven't been pushing it, because like I say, I think I'm really on the verge of a kind of breakthrough. But if I move too soon, like I said, I won't be able to back it up. And if there is a surge, if something does go viral and it catches on, I need to be able to take advantage of that, to back it up with everything.
My experience, on the very rare occasion that my stuff has very occasionally gone viral, which over 18 years, maybe twice, is that you can never predict when that's going to happen. And you just need to you need to be in a position at any time to answer a variety of questions that you may never have considered. In fact, the whole notion of being ready in these circumstances indicates that it goes against the nature of viral.
No, but you have to have, well, not you, I.
Mm-hmm.
If this stuff goes viral, I want to have something to offer people who want to know more. I want to have a course ready to go.
Let me put this to you.
Yeah.
Of the people that come here, of the people that take this to a certain degree of depth, of the people that listen to more than 20 shows, because I've done that survey now through the Facebook group, thank you for everyone who's responded on that, the people who you are talking to, a vast majority get, or at least sustained with the early part of your rap for maybe a 2-3 year period. I think you've got a long runway associated with getting people.
You're right. I agree with you. I think, it's possible to, but the thing is, I can do that, and that's possible, yeah. But I want to do more than that.
Certainly.
I want to actually, if people like it and want to do something, I want to say, cool, man, go to this thing, log into this URL. I guess
the problem is that you need to have, when my stuff has gone viral, in most circumstances, thankfully, I've had backfill for that. Mm-hmm. You've got to backfill that. You can't, the possibility that you could go viral, which literally could happen at any time, because you've got stuff
you never
there.
can tell. Yeah.
then you're going to have to either be in position to create the material very rapidly,
or have it ready to go.
And
or damn close. It doesn't have to be ready to go. It just has to be close to ready to go.
The purpose, I mean, now Gabriel and a number of other folk have actually gone back and listened to the back catalogue. This serves as a description up until the present day associated with something that people will find if they're interested in digging to that depth.
Yeah.
YouTube is something completely different.
Yeah.
YouTube is, particularly in terms of mass subscription, is a means of providing almost like a tasting menu of ideas that you can put out there and see how that goes. But it's not the same thing as what we do, and it's probably not the same thing as what you want in the long term.
No,
it's something that's different.
No, YouTube is really, it's a teaching and a marketing medium. As I see it, anyway. It's a place to put some ideas into the world. And basically, like I say, what I want to do is sell trainings. You know, in a sense, I want people to go to a website. I don't know whether there are going to be live seminars. There probably will be for some levels, but for some introductory stuff, it could all be web-based.
I guess the requests that came from listeners that wanted you to get a whiteboard for your birthday was that you would be able to prepare in, as you say, maybe 5-7 minute segments that you put up on YouTube, exactly those components in short form.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The thing is, I need to have some clear vision of what the fuck the format of all that is, and I just don't.
But is starting doing that, maybe even having like a test group,
okay.
where you can see out of this idea was what was gravitated to.
What I really resist is this idea of giving this is why I like having conversations with people, because it forces me. I mean, because actually I discover a lot in these discussions because I never know what the fuck I'm going to have to deal with next.
People have identified this week, which has always been my frustration, which is why I have the 5 stupidities in 7 seconds. I've identified that what you have historically pointed people to, which is your discussion with the late Tom Vine, is not the right format still for a group of people.
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah. It's just what I've got.
But true, but in the past 6-7 years since that was recorded, maybe 5 years since that was recorded.
The story has evolved since then.
It seems long and out of date.
You're right.
Now.
You're right. I probably need.
In fact, I think what we did for the salon may be an update.
You're right. I'll have to listen to that. Jesus Christ, I may have to listen to it.
Yeah.
Oh no. Okay, yeah, I'll listen to that. I think you may be right. Yeah, the 5 stupidities aren't all that interesting to me anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, also the talk that I did at Fullerton, I thought that was pretty good. I mean, it was
interesting. It was slightly more disjointed, and that was certainly what I was mindful of when we did the salon piece. Was that I wanted to, keep
I was all over the place there, but still, I liked it overall. I thought it had a good attitude.
You were constrained time-wise there, but also
short. Needed to be at least an hour. Yeah. But in any case, I do have a couple other resources, and you're right. This 5 stupidity, it may be time to retire that, or not retire it, but move on.
Make it a component.
Well, yeah. But for a lead, I mean, that's what I usually send people. Well, and that's still good for certain people who have come to me because of the 5 stupidities. I can say, well, go listen to this. That'll do it. But you're right. The real message now is about breaking identification with the language machine.
Certainly.
The 5 stupidities are just a method.
Yeah.
The method that I have chosen for achieving that.
Yeah.
So, that's just really a methodological issue. Okay. All right. I'm for that. I'm ready to move on this stuff. It's just that I need to have some sense of where it is we're going and why.
The other thing associated with doing a video, even a video intro to Stone Ape, is it would mean that you and I would have to look at each other for a period of time.
Oh, no. No, we can find a way around that.
Oh, well, we just divert our eyes. We have two faces.
No, what do you mean? We're doing it on Skype, right?
Or the YouTube, whatever, which does
whatever.
Video,
we're doing
shared video.
Yeah. Well, but so I don't have to put your face on the screen. I can just pull that window down out of the bottom of the window. Yeah. I don't give a shit what you look like.
Yes.
I mean, everyone else will see it, but I don't have to look at it.
Yes.
Look at me.
Yes.
I mean, we can be exactly like what we're doing now.
Potentially so. Yeah, that would be actually really very curious.
Well, who cares what the fuck you look like? That's just bullshit. Like I say, I
think it might actually change our conversations, though. I mean,
I know, and I don't want it to. That's why I don't like video.
Okay,
I don't want it to change.
Here's where we need to recruit someone.
Okay.
We need to find this. I thought the Kundalini woman was probably our best bet through this. I'll have to go and find other.
I don't even remember. I remember the reference to the Kundalini woman, but I don't. It was something to do with Mott's, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah. Mott said this group that he started up with.
Oh, that's right.
Somehow he'd fallen out, and he denied anything that this Kundalini woman was posting anymore because he deleted all her posts. I just said, "Scroll down, Mott. Scroll down." But the funny thing is, the Kundalini woman is exactly the kind of person that Mott should be embracing. Because ultimately, the Kundalini woman has her following. She's very, what's the term? Flexible, for want of a better term? I mean,
she's possible to be reprogrammed.
Exactly.
You know, but you have to be clever in doing that, though. But
so
you're right.
What I need to do is find the equivalent of the Kundalini woman, who has about 4,000 subscribers currently, and wants her next big break.
What's wrong with the psychedelic salon? Couldn't that be our Kundalini woman?
Well, it will be to a certain regard, but I'm talking about if you're doing YouTube.
Oh.
You need to have something, you know?
Well, I don't know what we need. Like I say, that's why I haven't done anything, is because I just really haven't come up with an idea that that works for me, you know? And no one else has offered one that works. Yeah. So I'm open to it. So, who wrote that ARG thing? Oh, that's right. I don't know who it is. But listen, I'm ready to go. Just tell me what the fuck to do. Yeah. Specifically. Don't give me some generalizations. I mean, step A, B, C, D. To do what? What will doing this achieve, and how, lay it out for me. I'm ready.
While you were saying that, I had this image of propositioning a First Street hooker as being your YouTube partner.
There you go.
Yes. There's
really?
one
Yeah, I like that.
Actually, that might be doable.
And I've always been partial to those Groucho masks.
Yes. Actually, look, Gabriel suggested that I be Obama and you be Nixon.
No, I'd rather be indescribable, Maybe I'll just, wear a balloon over my head or something.
Like one of those Freddy slasher masks or whatever. Well, it's not Freddy, I've got it wrong. It's Jason slasher mask.
Well, there's all sorts of possibilities. Masks probably won't be all that comfortable.
The thing that struck me, Gabriel also posted to your Facebook page today, I think, some guy who I watched like 30 seconds of it.
Yeah.
I found that just so... The thing was that he actually kind of looked like you. And that was the guy who he posted.
Really? I didn't... Okay, I saw that.
Well, he was bald with glasses and a beard, and he had a kind of, he had a similar kind of
It's funny, I didn't even notice.
You didn't know. Your rage was so great, like, why is this on my page?
Yeah. No, I left it up.
I mean,
I'm completely in agreement with the heart of that.
Oh, yeah, without question.
But, the language is just an abomination.
Yeah, no, I think you two teamed up, but that doesn't get us any closer to the Kundalini woman, unfortunately. So, yes.
Yeah. Every time I see Deepak Chopra, I begin to choke.
Yeah.
Although he says, again, this thing, there's a lot of stuff that these people say that, like I say, I'm really in agreement on some level.
Yeah, I just, when you have that kind of Star Wars scrolling text effects where it's just, like the start of Star Wars, where they were in a universe long, long ago, and it's all kind of scrolling into the screen. When you have that with typos, like really glaring typos.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, and blatant misuse of words and mispronunciation of words and everything. Yeah, it was pathetic. It really was. But again, the heart of it was good, and there were a couple people in there that actually made some sense.
They made sense for a short period of time, and then they cut the audio halfway through.
Yeah, I know. The whole thing was sad. Yeah, I don't know why I left it up. I guess
to frustrate me, Heron, it worked. Thank you.
Maybe that's a good question. I may be censoring myself in a sense because it's a new guy who's an enthusiastic and he wants to contribute.
So talking to Gabriel, I've listened to Gabriel's podcast. I think he needs to edit his podcast. He made a joke in the most recent one that when he doesn't say anything, he just leaves dead air. And Gabriel, it would take you half an hour to make that. In fact, all the stuff that you need is now automated in Audacity to remove that white space. Grab the audio, fix it up, repost it. Don't post 2 minutes worth of silence before you start talking about something. I mean, it's torturous. Unnecessarily so. And you won't, I mean, you probably don't have the listeners that you need to have because you've done these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it's not
so it starts off with 2 minutes of silence. I am not going to make it past about 30 seconds.
Or say we're about to start, and then there's 2 minutes of silence, and then you say a little bit more, and then there's more silence.
Yeah,
I mean, this is just ridiculous. It's just not, anyway. But talking to Gabriel, I realized that actually, if I was recording a podcast with him and editing it and putting it out, we could actually get some interesting stuff out there. And his perspectives, I thoroughly enjoyed talking to him about, and I think, we could certainly and we are going to put together a podcast that, will touch on a number of different issues that I haven't had the opportunity of talking on previously. It did struck me that when I hear myself talk about black nationalism, it might just be me hearing my accent. Maybe I should play into that, actually. I think I'll play into that now. When I did the Remind Bobby Rush about the murder of Fred Hampton site, few of those people knew that I was white. In fact, it was interesting because Rush's kids started coming on and harassing me, and they would use all these curious, like crabs in a bucket, for example, which white people just don't say to each other, and all these other things which were supposed to obviously have emotive concerns to me. And it was just really very curious. Anyway. Heron, I have to go and repair track and fix bogies and do things like that and keep the train fraternity happy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be another classic. Listeners, let us know.
Okay, Tom. Good night.
Good night.